Hey guys! Tonight, we are wandering down the brightly lit, impossibly long aisles of history to answer a question you have probably never asked yourself. How did shopping, a thing humans used to dread, become America's favorite hobby? Once upon a time, buying a sack of flour was a day-long ordeal involving mud, haggling, and a shopkeeper who wrote your debts in a book you could not read. Today, you can buy a kayak, a karaoke machine, and a 40-pound bag of gummy bears from your bed at 2 in the morning while wearing the same pajamas you have had on since Tuesday. Somewhere between those 2 points, something went gloriously, expensively wrong. So dim the lights, switch on a fan for that soft background hum. Get comfortable and let your shopping carts of worries roll quietly away. Let us start where it all began, in the dim, cluttered general store. Picture a wooden floor creaking under your boots, the smell of pickles and soap and kerosene, and a long counter behind which a quiet shopkeeper kept watch over everything. You did not browse. You told the man what you needed, and he fetched it down from weighed it, wrapped it in brown paper, and tied it with string. There were no price tags. So you haggled, or worse, you put it on account, a tally scratched into a ledger you could not read, and you trusted that the numbers were honest. Shopping was a chore, an errand, an obligation you put off until the pantry wept for mercy. And yet, even here, in this dusty room, the seed of something was quietly germinating. The first crack in the old way came with a small miraculous invention, the price tag. Suddenly, the endless haggling, the awkward dance of negotiation, the quiet suspicion that you were being charged more than the last customer, all of it vanished. A number sat on the item. You looked at the number. You paid the number. It was honest. It was quick, and it quietly dismantled an ancient source of dread. Buying things began, for the first time, to feel less like a battle and more like a transaction. And once the friction of haggling was gone, a new thought crept in. If buying was not painful anymore, maybe you could browse, maybe you could linger, maybe shopping could become something you did for pleasure, not just for survival. And so, in the grand cities of the late 19th century, rose the department store. Picture a marble palace with brass elevators, chandeliers, and perfume misting the air. Floors and floors of goods arranged like exhibits in a museum, each department a tiny world of its own. There were restaurants on the top floor, so you could make a day of it. There were live musicians. There were window displays, so elaborate that crowds gathered on the sidewalk just to stare. For the first time in history, shopping became theater. You went not because you needed a particular thing, but because the store itself was a destination, a place to wander, to dream, to be seen. The shopkeeper's counter was gone, replaced by open aisles and the quiet seduction of touch. You could pick up a silk scarf, feel the weight of it, and put it down again. No clerk hovering over your shoulder. This was a revolution in plain sight. The act of buying had been dressed up, perfumed, and turned into an event. But the grand department stores were in the city, and most of America was not. So into the rural lanes, down muddy farm tracks, and across the prairies came a fat, glossy book, the mail order catalog. It was a window to the world, dropped into your mailbox. Page after page of things you had never seen, never imagined, never knew you wanted. A piano, a shotgun, a ready-to-build house, a corset, a saddle, and you could have any of it simply by filling out a form, mailing it off, and waiting. The catalog gave the lonely farm family on the farthest reach of the country access to the same glittering marketplace as the city dweller. It was the first time the store came to you. You browsed by lamplight. You circled what you wanted with a pencil, and weeks later a crate arrived at the nearest rail depot. The waiting was long, but the dreaming was free. The catalog was, in a quiet way, the first shopping mall in your own home. And then a new voice entered the conversation. The admin. Picture him in a smoky office, sketching copy that would, within a generation, change what shopping was even for before advertising. You bought a thing because you needed the thing. After advertising, you bought a thing because you had been quietly told 100 times in 100 publications that your life would be better with it. And along with advertising came its closest companion, the brand. A brand was a promise. It said, you know this name. You trust this name. You have heard it said by your neighbors and seen it on posters at the train station. The brand wrapped the product in familiarity, and familiarity felt like safety. Suddenly, you were not just buying soap. You were buying ivory or Palmolive or whatever the magazine had whispered to you that month. The product was no longer the point. The story around the product was the point. And that story could be planted, watered, and harvested year after year in the soft soil of the American mind. After the war, a new temple rose on the edge of every town. The supermarket. Picture a vast, brightly lit hall with a squeaky wheeled cart and endless aisles, arranged by people who had studied exactly how you walk, where your eyes drift, what makes you reach. The milk was at the very back, so you had to pass 100 other things to get to it. The cereal was at a child's eye level. The candy waited patiently at the checkout. You served yourself now. No clerk, no ledger, no waiting. You piled the cart high, and at the end, you unloaded it onto a conveyor belt and watched the numbers tick by. The core had become a self-guided tour, and the store, in its quiet, brilliant way, had become a maze designed to make you buy more than you came for. You walked in for bread and milk. You walked out with a rotisserie chicken, 3 magazines, and a bag of gummy bears every time, and then came the palace of them all. The shopping mall. Picture a climate-controlled, indoor street, lined with palm trees and fountains and softly glowing storefronts. Miles of carpet under your feet, and music drifting down from hidden speakers. The mall was not a store. The mall was a world. Teenagers wandered it in packs on Saturday afternoons. Families made an outing of it on Sunday after church. Retirees walked it for exercise in the morning before the stores opened. The mall had food courts and movie theaters and arcade games and photo booths. It had everything you could want in one endless, twinkling loop. No matter the weather outside, you could spend an entire day there and never see the sun. And that was the point. The mall was designed to be a place you went, not to buy a particular thing, but simply to be, to linger, to dream, to feel the soft pull of 100 storefronts, each one whispering, "Come in, look around. You deserve a treat." And then, once a year, the mall and the parking lot went mad. Black Friday, the day after a holiday devoted to gratitude. Family and quiet contentment. Ordinary gentle citizens rose in the dark, drove to a parking lot, and camped out in the cold until the doors flew open. And then they ran. They ran for a marked-down television, a slow cooker, a cheap laptop. The deals were the bait. Scarcity was the hook. There were only a few of each treasure, and getting one meant being first, being fast, being fast, being fast. Stars had quietly turned shopping into a competition, a race with winners and losers. And nothing sharpens human desire quite like the fear of missing out. Nobody camped overnight in the cold because they desperately needed a new television. They did it for the deal, for the win, for the sheer electric thrill of the hunt. The object barely mattered. What mattered was the chase, the victory, the story you would tell afterward about the slow cooker you fought for and won. Shopping had become pure spectacle, a competitive sport played for the joy of competing. But this hunger for the deal did not need to wait for one wild morning a year. An entire kind of store was built to deliver that very feeling all year round. The outlet mall, the outlet set out beyond the edge of town, a real drive from anywhere. And oddly, that worked in its favor. The journey turned a simple shopping trip into an outing, a pilgrimage to the land of bargains. And then there was the magic of the brand name at a discount. Famous names, marked down, on sale, available for less than you expected to pay. Every tag proudly displayed two numbers, the original higher price and the lower price you were paying, with the gap spelled out as your reward. You did the happy arithmetic in your head, calculating how much you had saved, and that number felt like winnings, like money you had somehow gained rather than spent. The store had brilliantly reframed the act of spending as an act of saving. The more you bought, the more you saved. You did not come because you needed a specific thing. You came for the hunt, the thrill of digging through the racks for that perfect markdown find. The thing you carried home mattered less than the satisfaction of how cleverly you had acquired it. Buying had become a game, scored in dollars saved, and then all of this, the malls, the outlets, the warehouses, still required you to get in the car and go somewhere. That too was about to change. Picture a humming beige computer on a desk and a person typing their credit card number into a glowing screen for the very first time. Early online stores were clunky and slow, images crawling onto the screen, one painful sliver at a time, while you waited and wondered if you had just been robbed, but the old wish book had simply changed clothes. The endless catalog was back, now glowing, searchable, and open at every hour of the night. The internet was the mail order catalog reborn, only now it never closed. It sat there waiting at 3 in the morning, on holidays, in the dead of winter, endlessly open, endlessly stocked. Every store in history had hours. The online store had no such limits. The marketplace had become a thing that never slept. And it was about to get easier still until buying a thing took no more effort than a single idle tap. Online stores learned to remember you, to save your address, your card, your every past desire, until buying something required no more effort than a single tap. A thought would cross your mind at midnight, and a few hours later a box would appear on your porch as if summoned by a wizard. There were no clerks, no carts, no parking, no pants required. The chore your ancestors dreaded had been reduced to a reflex, a tiny gesture you could perform half asleep. Friction was the last thing holding your spending back. Every little obstacle in the old way of buying, the drive, the parking, the line, the typing, gave you a moment to pause and ask whether you really wanted the thing. One-click buying erased all of those moments at once. The gap between the fleeting impulse and the completed purchase shrank to nearly nothing. A thought became a transaction before your better judgment could so much as clear its throat. Wanting and buying had fused into a single instant. And so we arrive at the strangest destination of all, the place where buying things stopped being about the things at all. Somewhere along this long journey, shopping quietly became a mood, a comfort, a cure. You have a bad day, so you treat yourself. You feel anxious, so you browse. The act of choosing, wanting, and acquiring now soothes something deep and a little restless inside us, which is exactly what every shopkeeper, ad man, and mall builder in this story was secretly hoping for. Consider what actually soothes you in a moment of shopping, because it is rarely the object, it is the choosing, the small thrill of deciding among options, of exercising a little control. It is the wanting, that pleasant flicker of desire and anticipation. It is the acquiring, the brief glow of having gained something new. None of this requires the thing you bought to be useful, or needed, or even particularly good. The comfort lives in the ritual of buying itself, which is why the box once opened so often leaves the feeling behind. A customer who shops only when they need something is a limited customer, but a customer who shops to feel better, to lift a mood, to soothe a worry, to celebrate, or to mourn, or simply to pass an idle, restless evening, that customer never runs out of reasons, because feelings, unlike pantries, are never truly full. So here we are at the quiet end of a very long road. Tonight you traveled all the way from a dim general store that smelled of pickles and regret, where buying a sack of flour was a chore you put off until the pantry wept, to a glowing rectangle that summons a box to your door while you lie half asleep. You haggled over thimbles. You waited months for a paddler to crest the hill. You pressed your nose to a glowing window, dreamed over a fat wish book by lamplight, and pushed a squeaky cart down aisles arranged by people who knew exactly how you walk. You wandered the marble cathedrals of the department stores, lingered by the mall fountain, and chased the sweet glow of a bargain through endless rags. And somewhere along the way, shopping stopped being a thing done to us and became a thing we do for ourselves. A hobby, a comfort, a quiet little cure. It is worth a small pie, sleepy moment of wonder. Really? Everything you could ever want now sits a single tap away, open at every hour, asking almost nothing of you. No mud, no haggling, no closing time. The dreaded errand of your ancestors has been polished century by century into something so easy it barely registers as effort at all. So tonight, as you settle into your soft bed with a whole bright marketplace tucked safely away behind a darkened screen, maybe spare a gentle thought for how strange and lovely that is. For the price tag that ended the arguing, for the mailbox that brought the world down a muddy lane, for all the small inventions that turned a chore into a pleasure. The cart is empty now. The wanting can wait until morning.